How can you protect yourself from people who hurt you? How can you overcome the frustration that comes from being treated a certain way? And how should you treat those who have hurt you? Many of us find ourselves in the situation of having to constantly suffer meanness, insults, and hatred from someone. And this situation is really unpleasant, especially if the people who hurt us are very close to us. It can happen at work, in the circle of friends, and even in the family. But beyond the context in which it happens, what really matters is the pain that these experiences bring with them. When they treat us badly, in fact, invisible but extremely painful wounds are created in us, wounds whose scars we often carry for our entire lives. In the Zen story you will hear shortly, you will discover how to defend yourself and your inner peace from these people. So stay until the end because, thanks to Buddhist wisdom and the practical advice we will give you, you will know exactly what is the only way that works to preserve your emotional balance and distance of certain individuals. But before continuing, if you are not one of us yet, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to stay updated when we publish new content for your spiritual and personal growth. In the heart of Japan, nestled among the ancient trees of a forest, there was an ancient Buddhist monastery surrounded by serenity and tranquility. There resided the venerable Master Chen, a man of profound wisdom and compassion, whose words were like a beacon to his devoted disciples. At his side, his followers learned the Buddha's teachings, seeking to cultivate inner peace and compassion toward all living beings. One day during one of the evening classes, one of the young disciples expressed his frustration about the injustices he had suffered at the hands of people who had taken advantage of his good faith, hurting him deeply. Master Chen, said Lang, Buddha teaches us compassion toward others, but how can we remain impassive in the face of those who harm us? It is not right that they exploit and offend us systematically. It is not right to always turn the other cheek without these people suffering any consequences. Master Chen, with a serene smile, invited his disciples to sit in a circle around him. Then he took a stone and threw it into the water of the pond. Watch the waves that form, said the master, and observe how the movement of the stone creates an effect on the surrounding water. The disciples watched intently as the waves spread from the point of impact of the stone, radiating outward until they reached the shores of the pond. Just as waves ripple through water, the monk continued, our actions and reactions have an impact on the world around us, but we must learn to discern when it is best to let go and when it is necessary to take action in some way. Then, the master told them a story that directly concerned the Buddha. It is said that one day, while the Buddha was walking through a village, a man insulted him heavily. Pouring down a shower of offensive words and threats on him, Chen said. The disciples, shocked by what had happened, expected the Buddha to react, but he remained calm and silent, continuing his walk without showing any sign of irritation or resentment. When the Buddha was out of the man's sight, one of his disciples asked incredulously, Master, how did you remain so calm in the face of such offensive words? Why didn't you respond in defense? The Buddha smiled at his disciple and replied, suppose someone offers you a sweater as a gift, but you don't accept it. To whom does that gift belong? The disciple replied, if I don't accept it, the gift remains with the one who offered it to me. Exactly, said the Buddha. The same is true of hurtful words and threats. If you don't accept them, if you don't react to them, they remain with the one who said them. Remember, my dears, that reacting with resentment and anger is like ingesting poison and hoping it will harm others. But in the end, we ourselves are the ones who suffer the most damage. The disciples, after listening attentively, began to reflect on Master Chen's words, on the story of the Buddha, and on the precious teaching of not reacting to the provocations of others. And as they recalled incidents in which they had been involved, they began to understand that ignoring is not a sign of weakness, but rather a form of wisdom and inner control. Master Chen, to reinforce the concept he had just conveyed to his disciples, took them to a quiet place inside the monastery and began to talk about human suffering. He explained that those who harm others are often trapped in a cycle of pain and dissatisfaction. He who insults and harms others, said Master Chen, does not know true happiness because his mind is clouded by anger, jealousy, and frustration. As the disciples pondered the Master's words, trying to understand his point, Chen continued, "Think about when you are happy and satisfied with your life. In those moments, do you need to insult and hurt others to feel good?" The disciples shook their heads in denial. "Exactly," said Master Chen. "True happiness comes not from hurting others, but from cultivating love, compassion, and inner peace." So, my dear disciples, when someone treats us badly and causes us pain, we must stop for a moment and reflect on three things. The first is that reacting with anger will hurt us more than it will hurt him. In fact, if he provoked us, it is because he wants to see a reaction from us. If he doesn't see it, he will be deeply disappointed and will have something to think about. The second thing to think about is that if that person behaves like this, it is because, in reality, he is very unhappy and dissatisfied with himself. People who are well, who have an emotional balance, are too focused on their well-being to think about hurting others. And the third thing you have to think about when someone hurts you is that the only action you should take is to move on, feeling compassion for them. The disciples, impressed by Chen's wise words and the teachings they had just learned, pondered how to implement these suggestions in their daily lives. One of them, echoing the thoughts of many others, asked, "Master Chen, I am truly grateful for your precious teachings. However, it is very difficult not to react to certain attitudes." When someone hurts you deeply, leaving deep scars, most of us humans react instinctively or are too hurt to remain helpless. How can we work on ourselves so that it becomes easier for us to ignore these individuals and move on? Chen smiled and, looking his disciples in the eye, replied, "It is understandable that you find it difficult to ignore and not react in the face of abuse. For this reason, my dear ones, listen very carefully to the advice I am about to give you. The first thing you need to do is cultivate inner awareness. Before you react to an offense or injustice, it is important to become aware of your emotions and thoughts. Often, anger and resentment arise from our instinctive reaction. If, however, we stop for a moment to reflect, we will be able to better understand the situation and prevent it from degenerating. Practicing patience in our daily lives is another practical exercise that I suggest you carry forward. Remember that patience is a precious virtue that helps us to remain calm even in the face of the worst provocations. Learn to meditate every day, carving out moments just for yourself and for the practice of patience. Then, when someone treats you badly, breathe deeply and give yourself a moment to reflect. This will help you avoid impulsive reactions that could make the situation worse. Cultivating compassion is another important piece you need to work on. Even when someone hurts us, it is important to remember that that person may be driven by suffering or ignorance. I assure you, if you practice cultivating compassion, you will learn to see beyond the negative actions of others and respond with kindness instead of anger. Another piece of advice you should follow, my dears, is to recognize the impermanence of things. Everything in life is transitory, including the offenses and injustices we suffer. Remembering that nothing is eternal allows us not to give too much importance to negative events and to let go of the desire for revenge or immediate justice. Also, my dears, focus on the good, even in the most difficult situations. If you think about it, there is always something positive to focus on, and keeping an optimistic outlook on life helps us to overcome difficulties and not let the negative actions of others influence us negatively. As the disciples, satisfied with this important lesson, prepared to show their gratitude to Master Chen, the monk looked at them smiling and added, "Remember that in the face of evil and offenses, true strength lies in not reacting and ignoring those who hurt us. Because in the end, the real goal is to achieve inner peace, mental well-being, and emotional balance. And ignoring those who hurt us is not about avoiding conflict or hiding emotions, but rather finding the strength and wisdom to respond calmly and compassionately."